People living in affluent countries do have an obligation to help people in extreme poverty elsewhere in the world. It's not just a nice thing to do, but not a bad thing if you don't do it. I think it is part of thinking of yourself as living an ethical life in a world that's as sharply unequal as it is today. To live ethically is to act in such a way that you maximize the good you bring about in the world. All the arguments to prove man's superiority cannot shatter this hard fact. In suffering, the animals are our equals. If possessing a higher degree of intelligence does not entitle one human to use another for his or her own ends, how can it entitle humans to exploit non-humans? To give preference to the life of a being simply because it is a member of our species would put us in the same position as racists. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake unless you do it in front of a lot of people, but even then, it's only really wrong if you don't learn from it. What one generation finds ridiculous, the next accepts, and the third shudders when it looks back on what the first did. If it is in our power to prevent something bad from happening, without thereby sacrificing anything of comparable moral importance, we ought, morally, to do it. Forests and meat animals compete for the same land. The prodigious appetite of the affluent nations for meat means that agribusiness can pay more than those who want to preserve or restore the forest. We are, quite literally, gambling with the future of our planet for the sake of hamburgers. Philosophy ought to question the basic assumptions of the age, thinking through, critically and carefully, what most of us take for granted is, I believe, the chief task of philosophy, and the task that makes philosophy a worthwhile activity. Human beings have the power to continue to oppress other species forever. Will our tyranny continue, proving that we really are the selfish tyrants that the most cynical of poets and philosophers have always said we are? Or will we rise to the challenge and prove our capacity for genuine altruism by ending our ruthless exploitation of the species in our power, not because we are forced to, but because we recognize that our position is morally indefensible? The way in which we answer this question depends on the way in which each one of us, individually, answers it. We think of lions and wolves as savage because they kill, but they must kill or starve. Humans kill other animals for sport, to satisfy their curiosity, to beautify their bodies, and to please their palates. In the real world, 90% of the money spent on medical research is focused on conditions that are responsible for just 10% of the deaths and disability caused by diseases globally. I don't think there's much point in bemoaning the state of the world unless there's some way you can think of to improve it. Otherwise, don't bother writing a book. Go and find a tropical island and lie in the sun. It's easy to be cynical about politics, but there's a good chance you'll only make things worse by not voting. After all, who's going to listen to a couch potato? If aliens ever visit us, I hope they're more compassionate than we are. Otherwise, we might find ourselves on the wrong end of some very uncomfortable experiments. To be a utilitarian means that you judge actions as right or wrong, in accordance with whether they have good consequences. So you try to do what will have the best consequences for all of those affected. We should aim for our children to be good people and to live ethical lives that manifest concern for others as well as for themselves. I think I have a reasonable sense of appreciation of the fine arts, yet I have not had in any museum experiences that have filled my aesthetic senses in the way that they are filled when I walk in a natural setting. I do not think I am alone in this. For many people, wilderness is the source of the greatest feelings of aesthetic appreciation, rising to an almost mystical intensity. People may hope that the meat they buy came from an animal who died without pain, but they do not really want to know about it. Yet those who, by their purchases, require animals to be killed do not deserve to be shielded from this or any other aspect of the production of the meat they buy. It makes no moral difference whether the person I can help is a neighbor's child 10 yards from me, or a Bengali, whose name I shall never know, 10,000 miles away. There is a case for beneficially using humans in persistent vegetative states from which we can be absolutely clear that they will never recover. People could sign consent statements, as they do with organ donation, saying they don't mind their body being used for research if that were to happen. Self-interest, properly understood, need not conflict with doing what is right. In fact, many people find that leading a life of ethical integrity and helping others brings them deep personal fulfillment. If I am walking past a shallow pond and see a child drowning in it, I ought to wade in and pull the child out. This will mean getting my clothes muddy, but this is insignificant, while the death of the child would presumably be a very bad thing. We are all in that situation of the person passing the shallow pond. We can all save lives of people, and we can do so at a very small cost to us. The cost of a new shirt or a night out at a restaurant or concert can mean the difference between life and death.